And last night, after we were hearing from the different sponsors and partners, we started thinking about how can we help people transition back to work after recovery. And as we were thinking about that research, we decided to focus on the employer. So how can that employer help us with that mission?
And then we kind of brainstormed and came up with these ideas, and we further went again each of them, and we came up with these topics, which is self-image, stigma, community, workplace, barriers to maintaining sobriety, support system, maintain sobriety through extrinsic or intrinsic motivation.
And that was all through some primary research, so speaking with Sean and hearing those two specific speakers this morning. So that was through our user interviews, we synthesized into those themes.
And then we decided that we had to define what was the key elements, which was developing a sense of trust, and develop this formula, which we're calling our design principles, which is trust is the addition of common experiences, so relatability, being able to build trust between peers who have had similar experiences, accountability for self and others, and reliability. So any solution that we were to design had to have these concepts behind it.
So after talking with Sean, he told us that his purpose was to keep away sobriety, to have it, keep it away.
Yeah, and so thinking about that, the idea of Sean really telling us how important it was for him as someone who's been in recovery for a long time to maintain that, he has to help others that are entering sobriety. And so we realized that in this environment, and as we're thinking specifically in the construction space, the role of the employer didn't play the role that we thought it would. So we pivoted and we decided to focus on peers instead.
Therefore, we have reworked our how might we focusing from the employer on the peers, and the question became how might we enable the recovering addicts in the construction industry to maintain each other's sobriety.
So our question really became about maintenance and a peer-to-peer trust system. So to get into that, we sort of dissected what 24 hours day in the life is for a recovering addict who's in that transition period, maybe just after a halfway house. So we have here, our character is leaving the halfway house, and through our research we discovered that, it was small things like just getting up in the morning were really difficult. And the first day back at work, there were lots of negative feelings and both emotional and physical. And it was really common to see peers trying to offer help, but not the kind of help that is actually helpful. So, resorting to drugs again and opioid use again. So this is a really common pattern in which a peer would offer him another fix, and he would internally struggle with that question, with that decision, knowing and then remind himself that that would provide 2 seconds of physical relief, but then a lot more emotional pain, which would motivate him to say no, maybe once, maybe twice, but it was also really common to resort back to old habits and eventually give in and say yes. So, developed a solution.
Our solution focuses on 24-hour micro-interventions.
So, why 24 hours? Because we know that every day is a struggle. We heard that that's the amount of time they have to worry about. I'm an alcoholic, I'm a drug addict. The next day is a new day, so there are no long terms. The other reason that why we focus on peers is that we saw that these people are there to help them, but also can harm them, right? They're offering them drugs, but it's not for the purpose of, do you want to feel high? It's more, I know that you have pain, I can help you. But on the other hand, the addict is not seen in that way, right? It's trying to recover. So if there's an aspect of this might be harmful for me, but this person is trying to help me. So we are focusing on those moments where those interactions happen, that happen throughout the day. And we intervene in those little moments. When you wake up, can you get messages from your peers that are writing the day before? At 7 a.m. when everyone is getting together, can they share their positive thoughts that they have wrote the night before to each other, and they share it? Can they create support, what we're calling support shifts, which is can there be a hotline where every peer takes a turn to help the other when at 11 p.m. when you're having negative thoughts? Can there be someone there for you? Can we bring someone to your company to give you some sort of training while you're having lunch? Can there be meetings at the halfway houses that they currently go to seek support? Can they have meetings there to talk about the negative parts of their lives? And can we bring their families together? So what we wanted to focus here is to enable these people in those moments where they're interacting with each other, because that's the way for them to maintain that sobriety.
I was just going to add on, we're really focusing on the idea of maintenance and that moment that after you've transitioned back into work, how do you maintain this healthier lifestyle in a setting and realizing what an important role that the culture and the environment plays that can be either very helpful or very detrimental. So we're relying on accountability and a peer-to-peer sort of buddy system that helps everybody support each other.
And this would be focused in people that have gone through the same struggle, because we learned from Sean that they trust the people that have been in their shoes. They can see themselves in the other person. So they are the most appropriate ones to help them with this. So that's why we're focusing on that part where we say common experience is someone like me. Can I make when I'm being reliable for another person? If a person texts me at 11 p.m., I'm going to be there for that other person, but can that other person be there at 1 for me? And reliability, because we have all been through this.
First thing I'd like to say is that all of the presentation that you did, the rationale for your solution is really, really great. Like a lot. However, when I look at your storyboard at the end there, it looks to me like this could be, especially the top 4 stories, could be in Google offices in California as opposed to being on a building site. How do you see this sort of, because the story the empathy story that you shared right before is a horrifying situation, right? Somebody who's constantly been put in a position to say no, say no, say no. How do you avoid that, and how does this help that? Because it seems that would be the challenge to all of this. This is all lovely, and it seems like it's a really nice, supportive situation, but this is a dirty building site with lots of interactions that are happening throughout the entire day. How does this solution address that?
Yeah, I think we actually kind of try to focus on a little bit lower tech solutions, and some of them are very specifically with that environment in mind. The first one being just when you wake up. What we actually thought about was having is, this is actually kind of connected to the night before, where there's essentially, we called it almost like a fortune cookie, where somebody the night before, like you're essentially like an AA sponsor type buddy role for you, is writing a positive message, a joke, something short, so that in the morning when you are thinking, I'm facing this day of pain, something to get you out of bed is going to be just reading that message on your phone. Things like the stand-up, where basically, and then that night as well, what we were trying to do was to kind of give them some type of little journal where they just have 3 tickets, and each night they just write down one thing that they're grateful for. And then in the morning, as they're getting their coffee, getting ready to start the day, they're just sharing out quickly. I have this was my ticket, this was my ticket. And these are the other people that are recovering addicts that are mostly participating in this system.
Yeah, it's piggybacking off of the fact of how important support for each other is, and speaking to your point about being in an office versus a dirty environment, we're specifically targeting the really small moments and interactions that exist in any work environment, like coffee breaks or cigarette up in the morning, a cigarette break or something like that exists in all environments and that promotes interaction between coworkers.
Yeah, and the reason why we focus on micro interactions is because they're low tech, right? We don't have to invest that much money in being there for them at this time, because we're enabling people to be that agent of change.
This also like encourages comfort and interaction and engaging and like a different kind of environment. It's more transparent, because right now there's a stigma behind like open communication and trust. So this could encourage like activities to engage and keep you active and involved and know that there are people, others, and mainly informal connections more than like formal one where it's like an employer where you can't approach the person and you're not comfortable.
So the sense of connection is maintained throughout the 24 hours, which is why we kind of put it in like drops throughout the day, because it's an everyday struggle. It's hour by hour. So if those interactions might come in with the pills, you just got your funny message or you just had a stand up, so it's much easier for you to say no because you just had the your focus on maintaining your sobriety brought back to you by your peers.
And Sean just said that it would be great if a family or a friend would counsel him and someone coming from the outside world telling him that what should we do.
So is this a business or is it like a free downloadable toolkit? Because it looks like everything you could do is off the standard tools, and if you just give a toolkit to an employer, they could do all this.
Yeah, the idea is that it's accessible and low tech and
Some potential things we thought would be potential partnerships with like a halfway house or other organizations that are already doing a lot of work. For the scope of today, we didn't think as much about implementation. We had some discussion and decided to kind of cut that short. So that's definitely a big question mark, next exploration. But I think potentially using partners to help implement this would be really helpful.
Part that can help a lot is a union, because as an organization that they're already participating voluntarily, so we can leverage that connection and the resources that they have, because I heard, it's my understanding that they pay some to be part of that union, so some of those resources can be allocated to the higher charge documents.
And this kind of piggybacks a little bit on one of those questions, but like your focus on accountability and a lot of what we heard in the interviews and the stuff from this morning, it's here and in this scenario it's working well, right? You've painted the picture of how this goes well. But in theory, the whole point of this and accountability is a big part of it, and the ability of somebody to be providing for somebody else. Did you account for or design for the non-happy path or the scenario where somebody falls off or the person who is meant to be accountable isn't, or any of those scenarios? Is that part of what you thought about at all? Or
So those check-ins allow for people to say, hey, I struggled with something, this situation has happened today, and then maybe one of the advisors or sponsors may step in and address that either through counseling or detox or whatever might be appropriate. During our conversation with Sean, he said he took one guy to a detox center 5 times, and he said he will continue doing this as long as this guy has the desire to recover.
Yeah, these people are really motivated to help each other. So because they've been in that position, they have gone to detox multiple times. So the fact that someone is falling, it's everyone's fault. We are all there to support this person. So we didn't think about the worst possible scenario where all of this system fails. But what this is trying to do is to prevent. It's like a filter. So it prevents it for someone to completely fall.
I think too, an interesting distinction that we decided not to solve for are, as Bobby said this morning, many people need help, some people want help, and we weren't trying to design for those that don't want help yet. So this is definitely geared towards those that are, actively in recovery and really motivated in helping them, or enabling them. If there are slips, but they're still motivated, everyone's of course welcome.
And I just want to add some color to these people, the people that are addicts. They know who else is using drugs. They know who else is going through recovery. We heard from Sean saying, I know who is a drug addict because they're pale, they don't have color, their weight is very low, they know that. So relating on it, recognizing who is these other people is.
So you mentioned that this is a specifically targeted at the active recovery phase, and if on the backside you even kind of mark where in that journey that point is, where you're in whatever kind of program that exists before you transition, right? So the transition point is where I believe this service activates, right? Did you look at what happens at that point? Because any transition is difficult, right? Transitioning jobs, transitioning work, transitioning to daylight savings time tomorrow, that's gonna suck, right? So transitions are tough. So introducing any kind of service or element at the point of transition is asking a lot of any human being, because you're going through a lot right now. You're back home for the first time in 3 weeks, or longer. So So did you specifically target that moment to be where you introduced the service?
So we thought about that there were two transition periods. The first one is that moment that you're describing. Okay, I just left the halfway house and I have to start something new from scratch. But there's another period of transition, which is the everyday life, the everyday 24-hour cycle, and that's a transition to maintain. So that's where we are focusing on.
I think we had kind of two personas that we talked about, Johns and Kens, that are the two names for those two different areas, and it's almost the ones that are maintaining their day-to-day recovery are the Johns that are going to be a little bit more of the support system for the Kens that are just brand new, just finished the halfway house, which was kind of the transition point that we were looking at.
And Sean did mention that, I mean, you can't just like say detox center and then this is it. We're done here, we won't get back into this addiction. There has to be constant support throughout. And that's where the halfway house kind of acts, where you are working and you have like accountability out there. So creating something similar like that, where it's still there constantly, because I mean, like leaving you out there, there's a higher chance if you like just getting back into it.
And I think the primary goal of this is to make it feel like this is no longer a transition. This is after the halfway house, which is the major transition. But the primary goal is to integrate this into daily life as if it was just part of an everyday routine, so that it becomes so normalized behavior, so that it's instilled in every day, as opposed to actively thinking about it. Because we did learn that recovery is not necessarily something that just ends. It's a 24-hour daily process, and it happens. It's a lifestyle at that point. So this is just a way to integrate that into a lifestyle.
Great. Thanks, guys.